What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and today I've got an in-depth Dogmatika Invoked deck profile for you guys. And so, we all know how good this deck is, so I don't want to waste too much of your time right now. Let's just go ahead and get into the profile, and then after that, I'll show off a couple of combos and test hands to give you more insight into the deck, do a little bit of discussion and explanation as well, but let's just go ahead and get started. So starting with the Invoked Engine, we play 3 copies of Alister, the main searcher of the engine. We all know what Alister does. Next, we play 3 copies of the card that searches Alister, and then 1 copy of the card that searches our searcher, and then finally 3 copies of what Alister searches. So lots of searching going on here, but I'd say this is pretty standard minus the 3 copies of Invocation. There's a lot of debate going on between whether 2 or 3 is correct. Personally, I think with the number of hand traps that most decks are playing right now, you really just want to play 3 copies because Alister is weak to every single hand trap in the game. It's gonna get ashed, impermed, gammaed, veilered, maybe not ogred, but everything else is gonna hit your Alister, and you want to be sure that you're able to play through that. And so 3 invocations allows you to do that. So I do think it's necessary to play 3 copies right now. For the Dogmatika Engine, we play 3 copies of Nadir's Servant, best card out of Rise of the Duelist. It just does so much work. I mean, dumping things from the extra deck to the graveyard turns your entire extra deck into a resource, as well as searching a Dogmatika card from deck to hand. Absolutely incredible because there's so many good Dogmatika cards really that you get a lot of value out of Servant. Probably the best card in the deck maybe. Like Alister and Servant are probably the single best cards in this deck. Next we have 3 copies of Ecclesia, 2 copies of Fleur de Lis, and then finally 1 copy of Maximus. Or I shouldn't say finally, because we also played 2 copies of Dogmatika Punishment. And so this is our entire Dogmatika engine, and I really like that we're playing multiple copies of everything. I see some decks that only play maybe 1 Fleur de Lis or 1 Punishment, but I think this engine is just so powerful that I wanted to play more of pretty much every single card. Now the only one I'm not playing multiples of is Maximus, and the reasoning behind that is that in this deck you don't really get a ton of value out of multiple Maximuses. You don't get a lot of value out of them. You get value out of that first one, but after that you really don't need to be sending 2 things to the extra deck at the same time. And if you do, maybe your first Maximus will just stick on the board, you can use that effect again, but you don't really need multiple copies of it in my opinion. I found that whenever I really needed the second copy, I made a mistake earlier in the game. And so I think 1 copy is perfect. And now the final card that you could kind of include here, it's not a Dogmatika card, but you do get access to it through your Dogmatika Engine, and that is a copy of Shaddoll Schism. And this is really powerful in this deck because it allows you to fuse into your Shaddoll window on the opponent's turn, and a lot of combo decks just can't play through that. When you back it up with a Punishment or back it up with a Macabre, then you're probably going to be winning the game because Macabre can negate whatever their out to win is, and if they try to attack over it, you can just destroy it with Punishment. Also, you can use Alister to boost up your Winda's attack to again protect it from just being attacked over by something like a block dragon. And so I really do like Schism in this deck, and again Winda, App Cologne, Construct, all great additions to the Invoked deck. And so this is pretty much the entire Invoked engine now, or not Invoked engine, but Dogmatika engine. Hey guys, quick little interruption here, but if you guys are enjoying this video, definitely like this video and subscribe to the channel because I can see that only 10 to 15% of you guys are actually subscribed. We can do way better than that, guys, so feel free to like this video and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, but let's go ahead and get back into the profile. Did you do it yet? Okay, back to the profile. Oh, something I did almost forget to mention is that Fleur de Lis does not target or destroy. That means you can use it to out Red Eyes Dragoon. Well, not out it, but you can negate it. And then once you have negated the effect, then you can go ahead and out it through regular means. Like you can negate its effect with Fleur de Lis and then destroy it with a Punishment or an Intis. Or however else you want to destroy it. But Fleur de Lis at least negates it, which is like part of the problem there. So moving on to some of the flex spots in this deck. 2 copies of Triple Tactical Talents because they're going to get hand trapped a lot. And once again, your Alister is affected by all of them, and so triple tech kind of helps you play through it. And again, in line with those 3 copies of Invocation, there are a lot of cards in your deck that you can draw to capitalize on your opponent hand trapping you. And sometimes if you already have Invocation or an extender, then you can just rip a card out of their hand, and then triple tech can kind of function as a negate because you're taking away one of their plays. And so it really serves a lot of purposes. It also can out Dragoon because it does not target either. And so between Fleur de Lis, Triple Attack, and then another card we play, Dragoon isn't really a huge problem for this deck. And so I really do like Triple Attack a lot. Next we have 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. And Cosmic Cyclone is just, I think, incredibly versatile right now. It's very useful against Infernoble Knights, Dragon Link, Eldritch, the Mirror Match, and a lot of rogue decks. And so I definitely think Cosmic Cyclone deserves a space in every single deck somewhere in the main or side deck. I think 2 copies here in the main is great though, because it can serve as a breaker going second or defense going first. In that same line of thinking, 2 copies of Called by the Grave, also a card that serves multiple roles here. And I do see a lot of builds playing 3 on Called by, but personally I don't think it fits the criteria of a 3 of right now, because while your opponent's going to hand trap you, yes, but the hand traps that are being played right now aren't necessarily susceptible to Called by the Grave. I'd say the best 3 hand traps are Ash, Gamma, Imperm, and Called by is only really going to be hitting Ash. And so if you think of it like that, then assuming your opponent's playing 3 Ash and no other hand traps that lose to Called by, you're only going to have a 33 or 34% chance going first of using your Called by on a hand trap. And so if you're not using your Called by on hand traps, then what are you using it for? Are you holding it for Lords, Jet Synchrons, Block Dragons, stuff like that? Or like, what are you really planning to do with it? And there are a lot of games where I felt that there really was no way to utilize it if your opponent didn't hand trap you. And so I felt that because of that, that was a poorly structured sentence, but I felt that Called by the Grave isn't a 3-of for those reasons, because you're not really going to be stopping hand traps right now that often, and it's not that good as a defensive card otherwise. So I felt that 2 was kind of the perfect number as of now. And I will say that between it and Triple Attack, we do have 4 cards that are going to be good against hand traps if our opponent does try to play like an Ash or a Veiler or something like that. And then Triple Attack also has the advantage of being good against like Gamma too. Then finally we play 1 copy of Forbidden Droplets and then 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. And so the Forbidden Droplets was actually the 3rd Called by for a while, but again, after testing I just determined that Called by is not a 3-of, and I swapped it out for a Droplets, because Droplets is at least another good card going second. Like, being able to deal with opposing boards between the Triple Attack and the Droplets gives me 3 cards main deck good for going second, like specifically good for going second. And then it's also not terrible going first. It's obviously not good going first. Having to use 2 cards to negate one of your opponent's monsters is not good, but it is playable going first. And I would argue that it's more playable going first than Called by. And so that's why I am at 1 copy of Droplets. Now, you could make the switch for Upstart into another copy of Droplets and play 2 of all of these, but I feel that consistency is so important in this deck that playing Upstart's almost mandatory. And so far I've been liking this. If I have any updates, I'll definitely let you guys know, but this spell lineup has been fine. So that's pretty much it for the flex spots in this deck. The last section of main deck monsters is the hand traps, and for those I play the same ones that I mentioned earlier, the best hand traps in the format. 3 copies of Gamma, 1 Driver, 3 copies of Ash, and then finally 3 copies of Imperm. So these are the 9 best hand traps in the current metagame. Driver is a brick, that kind of sucks, but these are the 9 best hand traps. Gamma especially I think is the best, just because it's going to negate a monster effect as well as remove it from the field, and that's just huge, because in so many decks, negating the monster effect isn't really enough. Like, negating a Needle Fiber doesn't really do anything when they can just summon an Extender and then go into a Rorodon. Or negating Assault doesn't do anything when they summon a Tuner and then go Needle Fiber. So you really need to remove that monster from the board as well, and so it forces them to have 2 Extenders rather than just 1. And now, Ash and Imperm, like, yes, they are just gonna... your opponent's only going to need 1 Extender to play through them, but these are both good for their versatility. Like, Ash is good against so many different cards that you just have to play 3, I think, right now. And then Imperm, it being a trap card, allows you to play around things like Guardian, Triple Tactical Talents, Called by the Grave. So it's just really good in that regard, as well as being solid going second. So if you play against like a Zexal deck or a Winda, which is huge right now with all the Dogma decks out there, Imperm is going to be a big addition. So these 9 cards are the best hand traps of the format, hands down. But that's pretty much it for the main deck. Let's go ahead and get into the extra deck. And for the Invoked Engine, we're playing 2 copies of Mechaba, 1 copy of Purgatrio, and then 1 copy of this one, who I'm still unsure how to pronounce. So if anyone knows how to pronounce this card correctly, let me know. I mean, I just kind of sounded out and I'm thinking like Augoides? I don't know, but it's still a really good card though regardless. It being a trigger effect is actually really useful because that means if it's sitting on the board, you're going to get multiple uses out of it every single time the opponent summons a monster. So that's pretty good. And then Mechaba obviously is like your main interaction with your opponent, and then Purg is great for going for game, especially with all of these token decks out right now. If your opponent gets stuck through mid combo and they leave some tokens on board, it can literally just be game. And so Purg is pretty insane. Oh, I also forgot to mention something else about Augoides. And so this effect is the second effect to gain attack is actually really useful for also attacking over cards like Red Eyes Dragoon or Borreload Savage Dragon. It's a really useful effect for gaining attack, whereas because this can get up to 4,000, over 4,000, whereas a lot of times your Purg is not getting over 4,000 unless your opponent allows it and they mess up. And then Mechaba is not getting over 4,000 because even it plus Alister is only 35. If you look at your Shaddoll monsters, Construct is the biggest one. It plus Alister is only 38. So you're not getting over a Dragoon that has already negated a card. And so this is one of the only ways that you're attacking over it. So both of the effects here are actually really powerful this format. Almost forgot about that. But let's see. Then we have 1 copy of All Mirage and 1 copy of Secure Gardener for obvious invoked plays, which we will get into later for sure. For the Dogmatika Engine, we have 2 copies of Titanclad because I wanted to be able to play the control in this deck, because one thing that I think this deck does really well is transition between the beatdown and control roles, and by playing double Titanclad, it's a lot easier to switch back to being the controller to continue playing the control in matchups where you need it, because there are going to be games where you will dump Titanclad off of Servant, and then that's your first one, and then you might also want to dump Titanclad off of a punishment, and you might need that to continue pushing on your opponent's turn while you're locked under the extra deck, or out of the extra deck I should say. So I definitely like 2 copies of Titanclad, and with that 2 copies of Intis. And let's see, for the Shaddolls we have 1 Winda, Construct, and Apcalone. These are all, they all come up in the combos that I'll definitely get to in very soon, couple of minutes I guess. After the extra deck I'll do this, so pretty much right now. There's only 2 more cards in the extra deck, but I'll show you guys the combos in a second. But you use all the Shaddol cards in them. And Winda especially is really big because it's kind of your win condition against combo. A lot of combo decks just can't play through it. And then against control decks, Construct can actually be pretty big and beefy, and so that can be very, very useful as well, because once you get a Schism on board, you can use it to summon Winda, and then you can also use it to summon Construct. And so out of this 1 card Schism, you can get 2 monsters that both of them float. And so that can be a lot of value that you're getting to use to potentially overpower and overwhelm slower control decks. The final 2 cards that we play in the extra deck, 1 copy of Omega and then 1 copy of Starving Venom. Omega is great for recycling your resources. You can't summon it outside of Gamma and Driver. However, you're usually just dumping it to the graveyard with your Dogma cards, using it to shuffle them back or shuffle other things back, and then playing them again obviously. And then Starving Venom is for Super Poly, which we play in the side deck. But I'll do the side deck last because I feel like a lot of people just don't even care about the side deck. So before that, I want to get into some combos. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys the main combo of the deck, and for this, all you're going to need is 1 copy of Nadir's Servant and then 1 copy of Alister, which you can search with Magical Meltdown or with Terraforming. So really you have like 7 copies of Alister in your deck, and then there's also the 3 copies of Nadir's Servant. So this is a very consistent combo that I'm going to show you guys, and it's going to allow you to end on a board of Mechaba, Maximus, Ecclesia, as well as having a Schism set that you can use to summon Winda on your opponent's turn, on top of having Fleur de Lis and Alister in your hand. And so from these 2 cards, you're ending with like, you're gonna end with 7. So you're going +5 plus having 3 interruptions on your opponent's turn: the Winda, the Mechaba, and the Fleur de Lis. So this is going to be a really powerful combo. Let's go ahead and get into that. Okay guys, moving into the combo. So once again, all you're going to need is 1 copy of Nadir's Servant, and then 1 copy of Alister, or a way to get to it. For the sake of this combo, I'm just going to start with an Alister though. And so because Nadir's Servant is going to lock us out of the extra deck, it forces us to have to go into our invoked plays first. And so we're going to start by just normal summoning our copy of Alister, and then activating the effect to search a copy of Invocation. So now our hand is Nadir's Servant plus Invocation. From here, we can link the Alister away into a copy of Salamangreat Almirage, because Alister has less than 1000 attack. Then from here, we can link the Almirage into a copy of Secure Gardna, which only requires a Cyberus Link monster, so we can easily just link up into this, and this puts a light monster on our board, allowing us to activate our copy of Invocation, banishing the Secure Gardna, and then banishing the Alister from the graveyard in order to summon a Mechaba. And summon it in defense, by the way, or attack. It doesn't really matter. Games 2 and 3, you do definitely want to summon in defense to play around Lightning Storm, but game 1, you can really kind of go either way. Your opponent's not going to be attacking over it regardless, most likely. Then from here, you can activate Invocation's effect, and then add the Alister back to your hand, shuffle Invocation back into your deck. So now our hand is Mechaba plus, or I'm sorry, our hand is Alister plus Nadir's Servant. And so if you count those summons actually, we had Alister 1, Almirage 2, Secure Gardna 3, Mechaba 4. So we're unable to get Nibiru'd, and then we've added back the Alister, so they won't be able to Nibiru us afterwards either, because we could just negate it with the Mechaba. So we're pretty much set from here on out. The opponent's not going to be able to hand trap us, and we're able to freely play our Dogma cards. And so from here, we're going to activate our copy of Nadir's Servant, and we're going to search a copy of Ecclesia, add that to our hand, and then send a copy of Shaddoll Apkallone to the graveyard. And so when Apkallone is sent to the graveyard, the effect's going to trigger, allowing us to add a Shaddoll card from deck to hand, and then discard 1 card from our hand to grave. And so we can add a copy of Shaddoll Schism to our hand, and then we can also discard Schism. Also, Servant should be in grave already. So now from here, because we have an extra deck monster on the board, we can special summon our copy of Ecclesia. Then when Ecclesia is special summoned, activate the effect to search another Dogmatika card from your deck to your hand. And for this, we're going to search a copy of Maximus. And so to summon Maximus, we can just banish one of our monsters from our graveyard, either the Apkallone or the Secure Gardna, not the Secure Gardna, but the Apkallone or the Almirage. Either one works. So we banish 1, special summon the Maximus, and now we can activate Maximus's effect, where both players are going to be sending 2 monsters from their extra deck to the graveyard. When you're playing against a combo deck, this can be big for breaking up some of their combo pieces, or at least taking away some of their utility. So it's going to be hurting most opponents' decks, but for us it's able to help because we can dump things that activate in the graveyard, such as Titanclad and Construct. And so these are going to be the 2 that we send to the graveyard, and Construct's going to trigger immediately. When Construct hits the graveyard, you can add a Shaddoll card from your graveyard back to your hand, and so we can add back the Shaddoll Schism that we discarded earlier. And then when Titanclad hits the grave, it has an effect that activates in the end phase that will allow us to search or special summon a Dogma monster. So then from here, we would just set our copy of Shaddoll Schism. So we'd set that. I'm going to leave it face up so we know what it is. But this is pretty much our board after turn 1. We have Mechaba, Ecclesia, Maximus, and then Schism. In the end phase, the Titanclad will activate, and then we can search our copy of Fleur de Lis to our hand. And so with this, we have Disruption with the Mechaba, we have Disruption with Fleur de Lis, we have Disruption with Schism. Schism can be multiple disruptions as well, because when you fusion summon, it will send a monster from your opponent's side of the field to the graveyard with the same attribute. So you can send, if you summon a Construct, or we can't summon Construct, but if we summon a Winda, we can send one of our opponent's dark monsters to the graveyard, and their a lot of good dark monsters to send to the grave right now. And so on the opponent's turn, we could just banish copies of Titanclad and Construct for the Schism, summon a Winda, and then the opponent's going to be locked out of the game. And I think in most cases, when you have Winda plus Mechaba plus Fleur de Lis in hand, you win. That's game. And then on your follow-up turn, you can easily just change everything to attack, summon your Fleur de Lis, and then go for game. So that's the main combo of this deck. Again, it's very tough for a lot of decks to out this type of board. And then it's also very easy for us from this point on to go for game. And so that makes it a very powerful combo, allowing us to play the roles that we want to play very freely and easily. And that's why this is one of the best decks of the current format. Alright, so let's look at a couple of test hands. Once again, we want to see how consistent this deck is, what the real hands look like, real live hands. So let's go ahead and do these test hands. So first hand, Punishment, Imperm, Droplets, Ash, and Servant. So in a hand like this, we have a ton of defense, obviously, but not many starters, but at least we do have a copy of Nadir Servant, which can actually get us to quite a bit. And so in a hand like this, this is actually a pretty basic combo that I don't want to show you guys before, just, you know, everyone knows what Nadir Servant does, but in case you don't, here's the combo for that. And so what we would do in a hand like this is activate our Nadir Servant, and then we use Servant to search a copy of Ecclesia. So we'd add that to our hand, and then we would send a copy of App Cologne to the graveyard. Then App Cologne's effect would trigger. That's going to allow us to search a copy of Schism from our deck to our hand, and then we're going to have to discard a card. And once again, we can just discard the Schism here. So now we can normal summon Ecclesia, activate Ecclesia's effect to search a copy of Maximus, and then it's pretty much going to be the same as the main combo from here. We just don't have a Mechaba for protection. And so it's kind of risky at times going for a play like this because we don't have protection from Mechaba. However, it's still just worth it because of the power of Shaddoll Schism, really. And also just getting those other extra deck monsters in your graveyard can be huge. And so from here we can special summon our Maximus by banishing our copy of App Cologne from the graveyard, activating Maximus's effect, dumping copies of Titanclad and Construct. Construct will trigger in the grave to add back Schism. Then from here we can set our 4 cards. We have Ash in hand as another form of disruption, and then in phase use Titanclad to search a copy of Fleur de Lis, or a second copy of Ecclesia if you wanted to follow up and thought what we had is already sufficient enough. And so this would be a pretty good board. I mean, against most decks we have 1, 2, 3, 4 forms of disruption. Sorry, 5, 6 disruptions. Most decks aren't going to be able to play. And so this is not the best hand, but it does have a lot of interruption, a lot of interaction, and gives us still the ability to follow up on the next turn if we choose to. Because we could also use Punishment to just dump another Titanclad, and that could also get us to another copy of Ecclesia. But let's go ahead and look at another hand. So even the worst hands here have the ability to get stuff out of them. Not bad. So let's do maybe 2 or 3 more hands. Meltdown, Gamma, Invocation, and Punishment. So this hand sucks for sure. This hand is pretty much just invoked cards, but it's better than nothing. And the cool thing would be if our opponent tries to stop the Meltdown, which some players will try to do, we could Gamma that and go into an Omega and, you know, do some cool Omega plays. But this hand's not terrible. What we would do is just activate Meltdown, use that to search a copy of Alister, normal summon Alister, search a copy of Invocation, and then from here, like, link up into our standard link plays in with the Mechaba, set Punishment, and the Punishment would likely be able to dump Titanclad and then get us into our Dogma Engine as well. So we'd get the Dogma Engine going, we got the Invoked Engine going. This is a pretty solid hand, and then if we're going second, we had the best hand trap in the game to stop whatever the opponent is doing. So that's a pretty solid hand. Not the best, not the worst. There was obviously room for improvement, but we were able to make do with it. Because again, we have so many strong standalone cards in this deck that you can really make any hand work. Like Alister is a good standalone card, Ecclesia, Servant. All of these are just insane by themselves, and we play so many copies of them that almost every hand is guaranteed to be playable. See, Terraforming, Upstart, Maximus, Ecclesia, Cosmic Cyclone. This is another really powerful hand. So we definitely want to start with our Invoked plays. As you can see, we have Terraforming, which gets us to Meltdown, which gets us to Alister. So we'd start by activating Terraforming, searching a copy of Meltdown, which we would activate to search a copy of Alister. We're going to end up searching Invocation, so I'm just going to grab that. Yeah, so Alister, get Invocation. Then we pretty much do our main combo. It's going to be a little bit different because we don't have Servant, but we're still going to be able to get into a lot of our plays. So link that into an Almirage, link that into a Secure Gardener, activate Invocation, banishing the Secure Gardener, banish the Alister, summon a copy of Mechaba, Invocation effect, add back the Alister. Now from here we can special the Ecclesia, and for Maximus we're definitely going to be dumping Titanclad, and so that means we're going to have access to Fleur de Lis, which means we should just search a punishment here unless we wanted to use the Titanclad in the end phase to search another Ecclesia. We already have Alister for a follow-up, so I think it's fine to just get the punishment. This also just gives us another way to get Titanclad engraved to use in the opponent's turn if we still want to get access to Ecclesia. So we have a lot of ways to get to our Dogma Engine here, or to continue using the Dogma Engine here, which is one of the benefits of this deck because you have two of the best control engines in one deck, so it makes it very easy to play very efficiently. So we're going to summon the Maximus, activate the effect, and this time dumping Titanclad and Apcalone. So once again, Titanclad in the end phase, Apcalone will trigger now, getting us to a Shaddoll Schism. But we aren't able to send the construct here to directly add it back, so we're going to have to discard something else from our hand. I think the Cosmic Cyclone is an easy choice, and it's hard to say blind going first, whether it's going to be useful, but I think rather than taking that chance, we just want to go ahead and discard it, and then we can use the Upstart to potentially draw into an Ash or an Imperm. So we have 6 cards in the deck that would be fine to draw, or maybe even the droplets wouldn't be terrible either. So maybe 7 cards that would be good to draw. Drawing another... There are a lot of cards that would be good to draw actually, so I think that's actually fine to do, just discarding the Cosmic Cyclone in a blind matchup. And then from here, yeah, we could activate Upstart. Let's see what it is. Another copy of Nadir Servant, which we can't really use at this point. I mean, we can use, but there's really nothing that's good to send to the grave, nothing good to search, so we could just hold this for next turn, and this is going to help us break the opponent's board. Plus, it's a spell card, so if we wanted to negate a spell with Mechaba, we have that option as well. And so this would pretty much be our end board. We'd have Mechaba, Ecclesia, Maximus, Punishment, Schism, in phase, search Fleur de Lis. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 disruptions. Great follow-up play on the next turn, and our opponent's going to be under Winda as well, so pretty strong hand. Whenever you have access to both of your engines, you're usually able to get a lot of things going, which is exactly what we did here. Alright, so let's do one final test hand just to wrap things up. Last test hand, a couple more shuffles, final cuts, final cut, and let's see the hand. Triple Tack, Ash, Servant, Alister, and Punishment. So we've already seen what this hand does. This is just obviously the same main combo that we did, plus an Ash Blossom. If the opponent does have a hand trap for anything, Triple Tack could be huge. So let's say we start with Alister and they Ash the Alister. What do? Well, from here we could just Triple Tack, and then we can, what we could do to further thin the deck is we could go into our link plays, activate Servant, and then from there continue our plays and then draw 2 cards, thin the deck and maybe draw into something better, or we could activate the triple attack now and draw, and with those 3 invocations we play in the main deck, there could be a good chance that we draw one. And so let's just go ahead and see what we get off of the draws now. Okay, we did not get that, but we did get 2 very powerful cards that we're going to be able to use on next turn. And so we still have a very good hand. We still can go All Mirage, Security Gardener. That puts, you know, all the right attributes in the grave and puts an extra deck monster on your side of the board. It's also pretty good to end on Security Gardener because of the effect. It's actually really useful. So then from here, we'd activate our copy of Servant, using Servant to special, or not special, but search an Ecclesia, and then we would dump an App Cologne to the graveyard. Oop, can't see the graveyard like this. Dump App Cologne to the graveyard, use App Cologne's effect to, oh my god, these are all at the bottom, wow. But use App Cologne's effect to search a copy of Schism. Special Ecclesia effect, we already have Punishment, so that's good. We can just search a Maximus here and take advantage of the situation. Banish the App Cologne, summon the Maximus, activate Maximus's effect. We've seen this so many times, but I'm just gonna finish it out for you guys. We're gonna be dumping a Titanclad, and then I just realized we didn't discard the Schism for the Servant, so this should be in the graveyard. But yeah, dump Titanclad and Construct. So Construct's gonna let us add back the Schism, and then from here we would set our copies of Schism Punishment, End Phase, search Fleur de Lis. So even assuming our opponent hand traps us, we're still able to end on a pretty respectable board. Secure Gardener, Ecclesia, Maximus, 2 traps that are going to disrupt your opponent, ability to summon a Winda. Then we still have 2 more disruptions in the hand, so we have essentially 4 disruptions, one of which being a Floodgate monster, as well as pressure on the board that the opponent has to break. We have really strong follow-up with Meltdown plus Servant for next turn. So even, I mean, the hand was obviously really good, but even if the opponent stops us, they would have needed multiple hand traps to really stop everything. And for the Alister, as you saw, keeping Alister on board was huge. If that was a Gamma on Alister, then none of this would be possible because we wouldn't get the extra deck monsters, we wouldn't have been able to summon Ecclesia. But the fact that if it was an Ash, an Imperm, a Veiler, something like that, leaving that Alister on board in this matchup can be very, very big. And so we were able to do a lot just because it was simply on the board. So that's why it's important to play Gamma, everybody. Gotta play Gamma. So moving into the side deck, we play 1 copy of Pankratops, one of the best side deck cards right now. I think it's one of the very few cards that can just deal with Borreload, Savage Dragon plus Herald by itself. I think that's absolutely insane. So Pankratops is really good, useful in so many different matchups as well. Then we have 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More for going second against combo, going second against the Dragoon decks. Just very versatile. 3 copies of Super Poly for getting rid of Dragoon because you can fuse with Dragoon and the Anaconda that they use to summon it, and you just go into a Starving Venom play. So that's an easy out the Dragoon that they can't chain to or anything. I mean, they also can't chain the Dark Ruler, but so that's 6 cards they can't respond to that will deal with their Dragoon, so that's pretty good. But you can also use it to fuse for your Shaddoll cards or your Invoked cards, so there's also a little bit of synergy with the deck as well, so I do like Super Poly a lot right now. Then we have 1 copy of Mystic Mine, and that is the last, not the last going second card, whoops, but another going second card that we play in this deck that can just negate a Dragoon and allow you to get over it. And this is also searchable by Terraforming, and so with the Terraforming, we really have 2 copies of Mine. So a lot of cards that can deal with Dragoon in this deck. So going second against a Dragoon deck, you could have Dark Ruler, Super Poly, Mine, plus the Terraforming in the main. That gives you 8 cards that would deal with Dragoon. So that can be huge. Then we also have 3 copies of Evenly Matched for going second. Just another good going second card in general. I mean, it's good against so many different decks, especially control decks, slower decks, mid-range decks like Eldritch. Evenly Matched is just an incredible card. And then finally for the side deck, 3 copies of Solemn Judgment for going first, 1 Cosmic Cyclone, well, the 3rd Cosmic Cyclone, and then finally a card I've just been trying out and testing in the mirror match. I only use it in the mirror match. I've just been testing it, but I wanted to bring this to your guys' attention and get your opinions on it, and that is a copy of Shared Ride. And so in the mirror match, I found this really useful because obviously you do so much searching in this deck, and so when you're playing that mirror and your opponent starts with like a Terraforming or a Meltdown, or even at worst like an Alister, you're at least going to 1-for-1 maybe stop them from playing their Dogma Engine. And if they do go all the way through everything, you might be drawing like 2 to 3 cards, which is very, very useful. So it's something I've been testing and kind of enjoyed a little bit, but I just wanted to get some opinions on it. Another card this could be a second copy of Droplets. That would be pretty good actually. Or really, there are so many different cards you could add in the side deck that would be solid. I think Solemn Strikes were something I was playing for a while, because there's so many cards in the main deck that I like to side out against Adamancipators, and I wanted more good going first cards to put in that matchup, because right now you're only really putting in the Judgments, but you're taking out like I think 6 or 7 cards. Let's see, like the Cosmics come out, Called by the Graves come out, Triple Attack comes out. You see, you're siding out 6, but you only have 3 cards to side in that matchup. So that's a bit of side deck imbalance that I have that I need to work on. I'm not quite sure what to do in that matchup for that. You could just keep the Triple Attack Sim because they do play Gamma, or you could keep Called by the Graven because you could banish a block, or you could banish like a Revival Golem or something like that. But Cosmic Cyclone is 100% going to be dead. And so it's tricky in that matchup. I'd like to side out all 6, but right now I'm pretty much only siding out the Cosmics and then either the Called by or the Triple Attack. Probably Triple Attack. But that's simply not good enough in my opinion. I think I need to put in something else good going first in that matchup. At least 1 more card so that I could side out like 2 Cosmic, 2 Triple Attack, or 2 Cosmic, 2 Called bys, and then put in that 4th card for going first. Not sure what it could be though. Maybe a... yeah, I don't know, never mind. You guys let me know what you think the best card would be in that scenario. Maybe another Solemn, like a Solemn Warning or Solemn Strike, but I'm not too sure yet. But let me know what you guys think about that side deck. But alright guys, thank you so much for watching this Dogmatika Invoked deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it and or found it helpful, and if you did, feel free to give this video a like or subscribe to the channel, or do both. That'd be really awesome as well, and so I'd really appreciate it if you did, you know, at least one of those 2 things. It helps out the channel so much and lets me know what type of content you guys like to see, what you guys are enjoying, and it helps me continue to bring you guys the type of content that you want to see. And so thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, tips, tricks, anything you want to add to this profile, leave it down in the comment section below. I'd really love to see what you guys have to say about this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.